Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the TRBusiness Adapt and Survive Skype video series. For those tuning in for the first time, the purpose of this series is to offer an insight into how duty-free and travel retail stakeholders are coping during the COVID-19 crisis and preparing for the recovery. Today, we are joined by Manishi Sanwal, Voiceback Technologies Managing Partner. Manishi, it's really great to see you. It seems like only yesterday we were chatting in Oman at the medical conference. I just wanted to begin by asking how you are and how your family are and how everybody close to you is coping in the current situation.
Hi Andrew, good to see you. Although in a time which is not so great, I think personal reflections. The top of mind is obviously health of family and friends, and although the situation in India is not so bad as of now, however we have friends in UK or in Italy and in US, so it's a concern. I think the second thing post the obvious worry of health is the current business scenario, because though India is not doing bad on the COVID front, but there has been a massive lockdown. These many people staying indoors and such a big economy not doing anything, it will have its own repercussions, and we'll see it over the months, but it will have. And the second is how the near and far business scenario will shape up. I mean, so it's difficult times. I don't think anybody knows how things will pan out.
Okay, and obviously for a long time you were working as Flamingo Travel Retail CEO, but you're now working as part of Voiceback Technologies, which is a data analytics company. Yeah? Can you just give us a little bit of a brief overview of the business to set the scene?
So we are a customized data analytics company. Essentially, we use the modern day data science, the modern day mathematics, and the modern day computing power to solve complex business problems. And when I say customized, it means we use your data to solve your problems.
Okay, and can you tell us how data analytics can be used to grow duty-free and travel retail businesses, both during the crisis and after the crisis, and why?
So generally, travel retail is very unique from a data analytics problem-solving basis. One, it has a lot of data. Mostly due to compliance reasons, because you have to secure passport and therefore you have to save those transactions. The second interesting part about travel retail is that it is always a duopoly. Whenever you are traveling, you are visiting two airports. So you are competing, on a sector, you are competing with only one airport, which is very different from downtown, where you are competing with, 20 retailers together. And thirdly, travel retail is intensely promotional. The basic idea of travel retail is to excite people by giving a good promotion. Now, if you combine all these three facts together, you have a lot of leverage. You have data in an industry which reacts on promotion, and is relatively simple because you have only two people competing with each other.
Okay, and what would you say are the main outcomes of data analytics which can drive overall duty-free business among airports, retailers and brands now and in the future?
So, the moment I say that you have got a customer level data, which means you have an ability to do a deep dive, and there are trends of customers. So you can find out those customers who, let's say, are excited by a promotion. And then there are those customers who are not excited by a promotion. They know what they have to buy and they will always buy that. Now, having this kind of a data gives you the possibility of customizing your promotions. You don't have to give the same promotion to everyone. You can be much more efficient in giving what everyone wants. I mean, if you want a discount, I'll give you a discount. But if you don't want a discount, then I need not give you a discount.
Okay, but just focusing on the COVID-19 crisis in particular, in terms of data analytics, what strategy would you advise retailers, airports and brands to adopt in order to hit the ground running once the recovery begins? What are the main elements they should be focusing on?
So, generally speaking, a few things will change, and these are very critical things. One, the customer will change. It would be a changed customer which would have a changed demand in a changed competitive landscape. So you are not selling to the same guy whom you used to sell in the past. The second big problem would be that there would be lesser customers. So if the travel goes down, then the number of people who visit the stores will go down, and therefore there is a higher competition. So you have to fight for your share of customers. And thirdly, and most important, is that there will be a very intense pressure on your cash flows, on your profitability, because businesses have shut down. Now, in that context, driving growth would require some fundamental changes. And we firmly believe that number one, your forecasting has to be extremely strong. How do you forecast if today you have to buy for December? How do you forecast what will sell and how much? Because everything has changed. The second problem is that most of the businesses do a forecasting basis your previous years. You look your last October data and then plan what this October would be. That model will fall apart. For the next 2 years to come, there is no way you can compare to what happened last month. And therefore, companies would require far better understanding of how to forecast using much more advanced algorithms which are present today. The second, I said, you would be under pressure to give a growth at a higher margin. The only way it can happen is if you can figure out a way to cut down your promotion costs. And like we have been saying that, if there could be a way, and we have been using science and maths to figure that direction, that if you can give a dynamic promotion, if I give to Andrew, if I give only 5% off, while to Mr. X, I give 15% off. If I could create a system which uses your buying behavior to decide what I have to give, it will help me in relating to you, securing you as a customer, and it will help me in increasing my business margins. So for me, two key things would be that one, forecasting will become the most critical skill set, and second, your ability to understand the customer will decide whether you can get growth or not in the world as and when it comes back.
Okay, you mentioned competition. I think which you just touched on. Can data and analytics benefit the small companies as well as the larger ones? Because there's a lot of small companies in duty free and travel retail. Can they benefit from this as much as some of the larger players?
I think the small ones would benefit more and benefit quickly. In large companies, if you are trying to institutionalize a change, if you want to improve, let's say, a forecasting methodology in a big company, it would take you ages. On the other hand, a small company, if there is someone who's driving it closely and can force a change, it can react much sooner. My experience till now is that most of the good work which we have been able to do is in companies which are mid-level. They can react to a change much quicker than a big ones.
And just from a duty-free and travel retail standpoint, do you believe data analytics played a significant role in helping duty-free and travel retail entities recover from previous crises such as SARS, 9/11 and MERS? Do you think that it actually was part of the strategies of companies?
I think, generally, I would say no, primarily for two reasons. One, MERS was not so big, SARS was very big, at least in the Asian world, but, it happened long time back. So it was not, the data systems was not so evolved. The entire data science as a subject has evolved over the past 10 years or so. Firstly, and secondly, the usage of data in our industry is not, we are not ahead of the curve. Let's say an Amazon or an e-commerce companies are clearly which are ahead of the curve. They are the ones which have contributed a lot and demonstrated that business can be driven by these technologies.
So taking all that into account, you're convinced that data analytics now can help companies recover from this particular crisis, COVID-19, and build for the future. You haven't got a doubt. You're completely convinced by this.
I mean, it could definitely make a significant change, and especially in the context where we have been saying that this is a reset event. Whenever life comes back, I don't know when, but it would not be the same life. A lot of things will change. Now, in that context, you need a tool which can understand things much quicker and much faster.
And what would you say to companies which might have their reservations about data analytics and the role it can have moving forward? I'm talking about like during this crisis and perhaps in duty-free and travel retail in general.
No, so on the other hand, we also have to be conscious to say that this is not a magic pill. This is not a cure for all ills. Eventually, data analytics is a part of multiple things which you will have to do. You would be required to become a smarter, much more agile company, and analytics in its own way can help you achieve that. But at the end of the day, it would be on, it just can't be one subject. I mean, it has to be a lot more efficient operation of companies.
Okay, and just moving away from data analytics for a moment, Manishi, you worked at Flamingo Travel Retail in Mumbai for a long time. But how can retailers, suppliers and airports ensure they're in a position to move forward in general once the recovery ensues, like taking into account all the knowledge you have from your many years in travel retail and duty free?
I think, and it's sometimes easier said than done, but a lot of it will depend on how closely people collaborate with each other. And collaboration, at a trinity level, sharing information, because some markets will come back early. China could be coming back today. US may come back after 6 months or 4 months. Different markets would come up at different point of times, and therefore, and especially media like you could play a much important role in communicating, what is happening. When I say a customer will change, if we know what has changed in China, we could plan for it. So a lot of it would depend on how quickly the industry can exchange information to ensure that the other guy, doesn't have to discover it himself.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what your strategy would be if you were still working, say, for Mumbai Duty Free? What would you be trying to make happen if you were there now? What would you be trying to get your team to do? What messages would you be trying to convey to them?
Bit of political question. So, for me, I would not get down to strategies. I'm sure they're doing the best they can under the circumstances. But generally speaking, for a lot of businesses, it is important to take care of the short-term pains because you have to survive. But it's also equally important to keep looking for long-term gains. Like I said, this is a reset event. You could get opportunities which could be very, very interesting 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So sounds a philosophical statement, but take care of short-term pains, but keep looking for a long-term gain.
And just really finally, how do you see the next few months panning out as far as the crisis is concerned? How do you think companies can still salvage something possibly from the second half of the year? What are your own personal thoughts and feelings?
I think it would, unless there is a miracle and the virus just goes away, I would believe it would be a shut and, start-stop word for next 6, 7, 8 months. I mean, so yes, industry will come back. I would say another quarter, things will start opening up. But there would remain a start-stop syndrome. Cities would get closed down or countries would get closed down and open up again, kind of a thing. So there would be an element of uncertainty for at least till we have a vaccine or a cure. And companies would have to be agile enough to be prepared to close things and open up things at a very, very short notice.
Well, thanks so much, Manishi, for all your insights. As I said, it's great to see you again, and I look forward to being able to meet up with you in happier circumstances somewhere in the world soon in the next few months.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to see you, and take care. Stay healthy.